A giant fight broke out backstage of a press conference, made the news headlines all over this week. And if you thought I was talking about AEW All Out, you are mistaken. Now, I won't fault you for thinking that that's what I was talking about, but I'm talking about the other backstage fight that happened this week during a press conference. And this one happened with UFC this week. They have a big pay-per-view coming up. UFC 2 something or other, 270 some shits. I don't fucking know. But they had a big press conference going on this week, and all hell broke loose backstage. Wouldn't you know it? I'll be damned. Check out this clip of Dana White talking with the press and announcing that the press conference is over.
This is the weirdest thing I've ever been a part of. We had a big shit show breakout back there, and we're going to do this thing different than we normally do. We're going to call them out in twos and keep them out here for a few minutes, then we'll call it the other two. Trust me. This is the way to do it.
Dana, did anything
Yeah, there's lots of crazy shit going on back there, yeah.
Okay.
Who cares? Talk about the fight. We got it handled, and talk about the fight. Yeah, I think it happened. I apologize, everybody. I am in very weird waters here. This has never happened in the history of this company. So, trust me when I tell you this is the right decision not to do this press conference right now. And I hear you. But for everybody's safety, this is the right decision.
So this is why I said earlier in the show on the CM Punk clip that the fight backstage wasn't really a big deal for me. In the history of pro wrestling, there have been fights backstage. A lot of them. This is not new to AEW, and it has nothing to do with Tony Khan running a sloppy shop and he can't keep his locker room together and blah, 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 blah. This happened many times in the history of pro wrestling, and it's happened in the history of UFC. It happened in the same fucking week. You know, and everybody's talking about, oh, AEW is going to get kicked off of fucking Warner Media, which is a whole nother tirade I could go on, but I'm not going to here. It's a really stupid take because, you know, I don't think people care all that much, to be honest with you. It's just not that big of a deal. Fights happen backstage. Look, this is, even though wrestling's scripted, it is a combat sport. These are tough guys with big egos. And they're bound to rub each other the wrong way. They're bound to get into beefs backstage. They're all competing with each other. Even though they can be friends and they can get along and they can work together, inevitably everybody's competing for the top spots, the top dollars. And that's going to be an issue when you're mixing that with money, big money, and egos. And fucking, and just tough testosterone-filled men. I mean, look, it happened with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart famously. You know, nobody was screaming that this was, you know, Vince McMahon doesn't know how to run a fucking, he can't run a tight ship anymore, you know. He doesn't know how to control his talent. Look, he can't just hover over everybody constantly. If people have a beef with each other, they're going to find a way to settle it with each other when they see each other. Regardless if the boss ain't going to be able to do shit about it, even if they're sitting right there. Apparently this AEW fight happened in front of AEW's number 2 person, Mega. The chick that's like their head legal person. She sat and watched the whole thing. Nobody gave a shit. And, it just happened, it's happened in WCW. Chris Jericho got into it with Goldberg. It happened in WWE again. Batista and Booker T got in a fight. And I'm leaving plenty of them out. I'm sure there's other backstage fights that have happened. Vader, Paul Orndorff. Like, shit happens Arn Anderson and Sid Vicious got involved in a stabbing incident. Now, granted, this didn't happen backstage. It was at like a hotel or something, but you can't hold the fight itself against Tony Khan. You really can't even look at it sideways. It's the first fight that's happened backstage at AEW, but I could almost promise you it won't be the last. I mean, hell, fucking Eddie Kingston just got suspended for trying to slap Sammy Guevara. If he would have, I'm sure Sammy would have tried to hit back. That would have been a fight right there. Big, tough, testosterone filled egomaniacs all competing for the top dollar. It's bound to happen. And it happened here in the UFC, and this is just an example. So really with AEW, the bigger problem is everything that CM Punk said and how hard he buried the entire company, basically. That didn't happen at UFC. But for everybody out there that's criticizing Tony Khan about the fight backstage and everything's out of control and he doesn't have control of his locker room and stuff, there was nothing he was going to do about that. And, you know, these things are just gonna happen. And Dana White, I thought, handled it perfect. Now, he didn't have one of those guys out there on them. I don't know how Dana would have handled the ranting on the microphone like that. You know what I mean? I don't know what he would have did as far as, would he have stood up and cut the guy off, or, who knows how he would have handled that. But, he came out and he was honest with everybody. He's just like, yeah, there's some shit going on backstage. The crowd booed him for trying to shut down the press conference. He's like, hey, trust me, you don't want this this can't happen, because those guys were like the main event, right? It was the Diaz camp versus the whoever the fuck the other guy is. And apparently there was like a giant Royal Rumble backstage, basically. Like, both these guys had like 30 plus people in their crew, legit, and they all just fucking got into it. Just, you know what I mean? So it was an absolute melee backstage in UFC. And it's funny that it happened at a press conference like AEW, and that it happened in the same week. Like, what are the odds that would even happen? But yeah, like I said, I feel like Dana handled it well. Like, I appreciate that approach. Come straight out and say it. Now, if there's legal issues pending in the whole AEW backstage brawl, then maybe Tony shouldn't say a lot about it. But, like Bully Ray had criticized Tony for not giving a reason for vacating the titles on TV. Like, fuck, which is another kind of a stupid take, because who on earth is watching AEW that doesn't know that happened? You know what I mean? Like, throw CM Punk's name in the Google machine for 2 seconds and you're going to see a bajillion articles about it. There's no way that slipped under somebody's radar. You know what I mean? Even the casual fans, if you are attending an AEW show, watching AEW, you're one of the million that watch AEW on TV, you already know what the fuck happened. But, Bully criticized him for not giving a reason. Dana White came right out and he's just like, yeah, Diaz's camp and the other guys, they all had a big fucking scuffle backstage. I don't know. It happened, I guess. Whatever. You know what I mean? He was very he obviously irritated and pissed off that he had to cancel the press conference and he had to deal with it. But just, fairly casual up front about it happened. That's what's going on. I'm not going to lie to you about it. And I really appreciate that approach. And there's been people that have, he's let a lot of people say some wild things on the microphone too. Maybe not as hard as CM Punk did. But, there's been UFC fighters that have criticized Dana White even on the microphone before, or UFC as a company. Like, I don't see any problem with letting... Let your, Dana lets the fighters be fighters, and he lets shit go to the point where it just can't go on anymore. He encourages it to a certain extent, and then he stops it. And I don't see anything wrong with that approach. You're in a combat sports, even though it's entertainment, it's wrestling, it's scripted. I feel like WWE's a little too buttoned up and polished. And I know everybody's all PC and everything nowadays, and everybody, gets offended by everything and would probably prefer to see the company completely buttoned up where they never have any of these issues or anything like that. But, I mean, to me, let it fly, man. Let these guys talk shit about each other. Let them fight if they got to fight. Get it out of their system, fine them, suspend them, do what you got to do. But I think people are a little too uptight. And like Punk, the things that Punk said were completely uncalled for. They were way out of line. He should have been cut off. Something should have been done there. But I think everything else involved in this, I think to a certain extent, you got to let Punk talk shit. To a certain extent, you got to let these tough guys be tough guys. Or at least wannabe tough guys be wannabe tough guys, right? In the case of the Young Bucks and probably CM Punk too. Though, hey, I'm sure all of them could kick my ass. But in terms of like wrestling, tough guys. But yeah, I just wanted to show that one to you guys because it was very funny, and I don't see a lot of people talking about it in the wrestling media. Everybody's talking about the CM Punk thing like it's the end of the world and the worst thing, which I mean it is. It's very nasty. But nobody's really brought in the UFC thing and kind of compared it that I was able to see, and used that to kind of soften the AEW situation a little bit. So I thought I'd toss that out to you guys. Let me know. Give me your thoughts. If you're watching on YouTube, throw them in the comments. Let me know what you think. Hey, thanks for checking out that clip. Don't forget to check out other clips here on the channel. And while you're there, throw a like, throw a subscribe. And don't forget to check out full episodes each and every Sunday of the Pro Wrestling Podcast.